In this video, I am doing a makeup of Esmeralda. I've based it on her from the Disney character. But while I was sort of practicing on how I was going to do the makeup and the costume and everything, I've seen the Disney film, like I guess you all have. I looked at the original story, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was originally a novel by Victor Hugo, and it was about a hunchback called Quasimodo who grew up in Notre Dame Cathedral. So I looked a bit further on, and I can assure you there was no happy endings. There was no fluffy Disney happy endings in the actual real story. So when I looked, it was basically Esmeralda's birth name was Agnes, and she is a love child, which means that, you know, she was a child that wasn't in marriage, and she was nicknamed Chantefleur, and Paquette was the mother's name, and she became a prostitute after being seduced by a young noble man. If you were poor in those times, this was a common occurrence, and she lives a miserable life in poverty and loneliness because she's a prostitute. Agnes' birth makes her happy again, so Paquette becomes happy once more, and she adores her child, and the neighbours all around where she lived in the town started to forgive her for her past of being a Scarlet Woman, because that's how it was in those days. So tragedy happens when the gypsies apparently kidnap the young baby, leaving the hideously deformed Quasimodo in her place. The people of the town come to the conclusion that the gypsies have eaten the baby. The mother flees in despair, and Quasimodo has an exorcism performed on him and is sent to Notre Dame. 15 years later, Agnes is now Esmeralda, and she's living happily amongst the gypsies of Paris. She has a pet goat called Djali, who performs counting tricks with a tambourine, an act later used as evidence that Esmeralda is a witch. Claude Frollo sends his adopted son, Quasimodo, to kidnap Esmeralda. Esmeralda was then rescued by Captain Phoebus, who she falls in love with to the point of obsession. I think we've all felt like that at times in life. Clopin Trafali, the king of the Truads, prepares to execute a poet named Pierre Gringawi for the passing of the Truads' territory, known as the Court of Miracles. In a compassionate act to save his life, Esmeralda agrees to marry this poet. Quasimodo is sentenced to pillory for his attempted kidnapping of Esmeralda. His victim, she pities him and serves him water. Because of this, Quasimodo now falls in love with her. Being beautiful and poor seems to be the answer at this part in the story. She is too disgusted by his ugliness to kiss his hands, though. Hold on. Can we stop it a minute? In the courthouse, Paquette, who is now changed her name to Sister Gudule, who was obviously Agnes, who is now Esmeralda's mother, doesn't realise that Esmeralda is her daughter and curses Esmeralda, claiming that she and the gypsies ate her lost child. 2 months later, Esmeralda is walking the streets when Fleur, who is the fiancée of Phoebus, and her wealthy friends spot Esmeralda. Fleur is jealous of Esmeralda's beauty and ignores her, but her friends call Esmeralda over out of curiosity. They start to make fun of Esmeralda's clothes. Phoebus tries to make Esmeralda feel better. Fleur grabs Esmeralda's bag and pieces of wood fall out, and Djali, Esmeralda's goat, moves the letters to spell Phoebus. Fleur, realising Esmeralda is competition, calls Esmeralda a witch and passes out. Later that month, Esmeralda meets with Phoebus and declares her love for him. Phoebus takes the opportunity to kiss her and asks her what is the point of marriage. He pretends to love her. He has no intention of leaving Fleur. Yes, men tend to want the bitch with money. He just wants to sleep with Esmeralda, which leaves her very, very hurt. Phoebus pretends to be sad and says Esmeralda must no longer love him. Esmeralda says she does love him, and Phoebus starts undoing her shirt. Frollo, who was watching from behind the door, bursts into a jealous rage, stabs Phoebus and flees. Esmeralda passes out at the sight of Frollo. When she comes to, she finds herself framed for Phoebus's murder. Miscommunication makes the jury believe that Phoebus is dead. Esmeralda proclaims her innocence, but when she is threatened with having her foot crushed in a vice, she confesses to a murder that she didn't commit. That hasn't really happened. The court sentences her to death for murder and witchcraft. Frollo visits her and says, "Sleep with me or face death." Esmeralda refuses. Frollo is mad and leaves the city. The next day, Quasimodo takes Esmeralda and runs back just before she is hanged, crying, "Sanctuary, sanctuary." She stays in the cell at Notre Dame. She and Quasimodo become friends. She looks past his misshapen exterior. Quasimodo tells her to use this whistle so that she can call him because his hearing is really bad. One day, Esmeralda sees Phoebus walking past. She asks Quasimodo to follow him. But when Quasimodo finds Phoebus, he's coming out of Fleur, the rich bitch's house. Phoebus, believing that Esmeralda is dead, believe Quasimodo is a devil, and what they called summoning spirits, and runs off. Quasimodo tells Esmeralda he didn't find Phoebus to save her feelings. Frollo tries to rape Esmeralda. She blows the whistle and Quasimodo comes. Quasimodo picks him up and beats him up. Quasimodo sees it's Frollo and he's surprised. Frollo tells Esmeralda no one can have her if he can't. He leaves the cathedral. Frollo finds Gringoire and informs Parliament has visited to remove Esmeralda from the sanctuary. Gringoire agrees to save Esmeralda. The next night, the Parisian gypsies, led by Gringoire, go to Notre Dame to rescue Esmeralda. Quasimodo mistakenly thinks the gypsies have come to turn Esmeralda in. He uses Notre Dame's defences to fight the gypsies. News of this reaches the ears of King Louis. He sends soldiers, including Phoebus, to end the riot. The gypsies are slaughtered by the king's men. Quasimodo does not realise the soldiers wish to hang Esmeralda. He panics when he can't find her. He goes to her room looking for her. He doesn't know where she is. During this attack, Gringoire and a cloaked stranger slip into Notre Dame, and they find Esmeralda about to sneak out of the cathedral. Gringoire offers to save her. She agrees. The three get into a boat and paddle down the Seine. Esmeralda passes out after hearing the people chanting in the streets that they want her dead. When she awakens, she finds that Gringoire is gone and the stranger is Frollo. Oh, again. He gives her a choice. Stay with me now or be handed over. Esmeralda asked to be executed. Angry, Frollo casts her into the arms of Paquette. Esmeralda and Paquette realise she is Agnes. Esmeralda is Agnes, Paquette's lost child. So Paquette is actually her mother, who's now Gadelle. The guards arrive. Paquette, who is now Gadelle, asks to show mercy for herself and Esmeralda. Gadelle kicks and bites the guard, and he gets fed up with it, and he throws her to the ground, and she hits her head on a stone, and she dies there and then. At Notre Dame, Quasimodo is still looking frantically for his friend Esmeralda. He sees Frollo looking demented on the North Tower. He follows Frollo's gaze, where he sees Esmeralda in a white dress in her death throes, dangling from the scaffold. Quasimodo pushes Frollo off the tower in rage. He then tracks Esmeralda's body to the mass graveyard where she was dumped after the execution, and he starves himself to death while embracing her corpse. And that is the story, in a quick form of the Victor Hugo story, which is so different from the Disney movie, but is more likely to be the truth. It is closer to reality, I would imagine, than all these wonderful things happening. And I think that's a problem sometimes with Disney, is that we all think we're going to get the Disney fairy tale. And the truth of the matter is that that's not how it is. But anyway, that's the story. Thanks for listening. So just use a cotton bud, I do, and then just tidy it up. This one, Revolution concealer. Okay. There, 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 there. Okay. Finger. Let's pat it on. Blend it. You can use this. and that, and out. Right. The rest of the face. Okay. So I want to use